Welcome to this fourth episode of this cycle of podcasts dedicated to human service fields. And this month, in the sign of Cancer, we will be focusing on the field of creativity and culture, and in particular, how we become builders of a new culture. My name is Lorraine Flower, and I'm a member of the Community of Living Ethics and your host for this podcast today. As the first sign of water, Cancer brings us into contact with the sense of feeling, that faculty that allows us to perceive the psychic aspect of life, and if we choose to, take care of it. For sure, each of us remember moments when we entered in an environment where we felt comfortable, or another in which we wanted to escape immediately, without this being due to something visible. This is how the perceptual capacity of the invisible energy quality is expressed, which in turn allows us to choose to connect with more or less luminous energies. Which brings us to the task in Cancer, which at a soul level is expressed in the motto, "I build a house of light, and there I dwell." Building presupposes being creators, having a project, the right material and knowledge to give birth to an illuminated house. We can therefore ask ourselves, for the groups to which we belong, or for the whole world, what source inspires me to have a realization of a project? What types of energy do I use to create and be creative? What am I giving birth to creatively? And how does that support the evolution of humanity, even within its small dimension? It seems we can see Cancer as an invitation to recognize and implement our potential to create the new, which brings us back to the joy of manifesting ourselves for what we are, that is, creators. So as today we explore the field of creativity and culture, we can consider how we can connect more fully with our feeling and sensing to express the creativity that sits within us. I'm delighted that today we're joined by Claudia Bombardella. Claudia is a complete musician, multi-instrumentalist, singer, and composer. She plays a very broad range of instruments, and her passionate research about the voice makes her an intense singer. Welcome, Claudia.
Welcome, everybody.
Oh, thank you so much for being with us today for this important subject at a time when our world needs us to express our creative energies, because we know we need to look to build the new. This is so important. And as someone who's deeply immersed in being creative as a musician, as a composer, as a singer, I'd really like to get a sense of what it means to be creative today. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how you relate to this idea of creativity.
Yes, thank you for this beautiful question. And I often think about this, and it's changing, of course, and getting deeper. And now the year passed and passed. So what I can say now is, to me, this creativity, this concept is a space, is an inner space that prepares us and allows us to enter beyond the rational mind, beyond the limits, beyond this three-dimensional world. And it's more an act of receiving the information of the universe, which has another specific language, more than acting. The acting is, of course, the second step. But first of all, it is this capacity to tune in and receive the information in a way that I would say is resonance. So it is really interesting, because our mind has this incredible power to give the direction of with what do I resonate. And so I think that what you have to do is very much to be able to select and really practice this receiving information, resonate, and recognize when this resonance is not good for us. Yes,
these are no, thank you. And I should have said for our listeners that, of course, you are a native Italian and you're very generously speaking in English with us today. So thank you for that. And I love the little addition of some Italian words in there too. Yes, as I'm listening to you, Claudia, what I'm hearing is those two parts, that opening ourselves up to receive the impulses, the information that is already in the universe, but needs a channel to come into. And then the second part of that is then how we act and how we use our mind to help us to make the choices about what we will do with that information. But that important phrase of being in resonance. Now, as a musician, of course, the language that you've used there has a very musical quality, but how would you see that being applied also for people who may not identify so much with the world of the arts? I mean, creativity for me goes beyond music or painting or the dramatic arts and into life. Can you draw that across to other?
I would say that everybody has attention towards something material, energetic, spiritual, or mystical, or whatever. And I think the first thing is we have to recognize where does this tension, which of course comes from the heart and the coherence with our brain, but where is this tension? Where does she want to go? So once I recognize this, and this is a real path through the truth. So truth is to me the first expression of the creativity, work. Let's say the practice. Once we recognize this truth, then we have to. Sometimes it takes courage because life told us we are very little, but in fact we are immense, no? As human beings, and we have to. Once we recognize this, we have to nourish it, to follow it, and this will bring us to this practice of resonance. No?
Yes.
Because if I like to write, let's say, I like to write letters. I write, so I practice this. I don't have to think that it's a creative thing. I just have to. The creativity is inside, but it develops in art, and this is for everybody. You don't have to be artist, but it develops in art when it has a form with geometrical structures that emanate particular frequencies. And it can be very spontaneous. Very often it's spontaneous because it's directly from the universe. You get the information and transform it. So it's important that we practice our attention toward something.
And fascinating there also what you were saying about the role of the heart in this, because we know that the heart beats and we all have a physical sense of that in our body, and yet there's also that deep energetic role that the heart has as a container, as a receptacle of all the vibrations that are going on. And as we open to the information that our heart is receiving or that it is holding, we maybe open ourselves also to potential, to our potential to be creative. And I'm thinking here even of, for those people who maybe think, well, I work in an office, or I'm a nurse, or I do something, I'm a physical worker, I do things with my hands. Where does that resonance and creativity play its part there? But for me, it's also possible to be, of course, it's a birthright. We are creative. Everything we manifest is an expression of creativity. Would you say?
Yes, of course. And I think the problem is not so much what we do, but how much we recognize that our minds are trapped into this, how do you say, this beliefs, these false beliefs, or beliefs that are not useful, or that make us maybe believe that we cannot create or be receptive. So again, I think again there is this need of truth. So to say, okay, my mind thinks that I cannot. This is the first truth. Then, okay, only my mind. But what does my heart say? No, my heart say, I like to write. I like to sing. I like to dance. Whatever. And so this is a little contradiction, no, inside. But what makes me feel good? What my heart thinks, or what my mind thinks? So that is very interesting, no? So I recognize this belief. I say, maybe it's a belief. I don't know, but maybe. So I follow the path of my heart, of this tension, and then this first little belief starts to fall. And then when this first belief that I am not able is recognized, then you say, oh, okay, maybe there are other beliefs beyond. So I am ready to let them come to see. And always this beautiful word that I think is the word we have really to work on in this moment is the truth.
Yes, it's interesting that, again, that idea of truth in relation to these beliefs that we hold about ourselves, because they are so limiting, aren't they? If we allow that, I mean, they're empowering as well if they're working in a certain direction, but they can be very limiting. And having the courage to free ourselves from that. But I think there's another aspect to it that often people speak about, and that's the judgment of good and bad, in the sense of, my heart may say I would like to do this, but society says, well, unless you're good at it, please don't do it. And there's a kind of quality measure somewhere in there about what does good creativity look like. How do you overcome that as someone who is, in the public domain with your creativity?
Well, it's an act of courage and of faith. There's no way, because I started composing, and I always thought, no, it's not, because you have these enormous, fantastic composers in thousands of years. But one day I just said, okay, it's what it is. And then sometimes it's useful. And then you say, okay, it's useful. This is very interesting. Sometimes it's useful for my soul, but it's also useful for sharing something different, or it activates simply another thing, like our conversation now. No, it's incredible what we can activate with our little courage to express whatever it is.
Yes. And of course, courage is a quality of the heart, isn't it? It's again coming into resonance with the heart, but using it with the will.
Yes. And another thing that maybe can be interesting, I make a little example, if you think so.
Please.
the importance of the element of listening, no, that emerged now. I listen to my heart and so, but the listening is really an attitude that we can listen with the ears, with heart, and with the eyes or and other senses. But it brings us to perceive the truth, but it's not immediate, because immediately we are in the mind, and the mind also has many strati,
layers or levels. Yes.
So it's interesting because you see things from different perspectives. But when, for example, I listen to my voice. Okay, well, so I listen my sound, and the first thing, as you said, there is the black and white. It's I like it or I don't like it, and we have to pass this and say, okay, but it's okay, I think this, but what is this? How is this sound? Is it a clear sound? Is it a deep sound? It's whatever, no? And I try to enter in a deeper listening, so I forget I like it or I don't like it. And there slowly emerged the truth. And so I discovered that my sound has many qualities. And this is extraordinary, because I am not anymore in the mind. I am in the perception, which the more and more I listen, it gives me other informations, because it gives me also the informations of this room, of the quality of the wall, of the quality of resonate, and.
Yeah. So what you're starting to do here, Claudia, is help us to almost have a little bit of a recipe or an insight into the creative process, because by, as you say, coming into our heart, and then now through what you've just described, that process of overcoming the mind. Yes, we have to challenge our beliefs, but also as we take up our courage and have a go at something, and then overcome that first black and white judgment and go into the deeper qualities, we can see almost a guidebook or a recipe starting to unfold here for how people might expand their relationship with their creative forces, their ability to be creative, and come into relationship with them. How was that for you? Did you know from a very young age that you had this ability to listen and to be in resonance with your heart, or did you have to go through some deeper practices for yourself?
Yes, I made a lot of practices, many. I was maybe fortunata. I was
lucky.
Lucky, yes, because I was born in with German mother, Italian father, and in a country where you speak French. So the fact that when I was born, I spoke 3 languages directly. So this activated very much my ear. And also, since I am born, I was singing in many languages. So I was very lucky in this in this way. But of course, I appreciated this thing later on, because at the beginning I had very big identity problems. I'm Italian. No, I am German. I'm Luxembourgish or whatever. And of course there was no answer. So I have, like everybody, had to make my path, and I must say the study of music. So my heart tended toward music since I was little. It's true.
Yes.
And I had, it was not very easy, of course, not always, but I was supported, and I could do this path. And of course, I have to make choices, because if you decide to do only this, you need courage, because the life is not easy. But the thing is, of course, for music, it's easy to think, but it must be like this for everything that we want to where we want to get better. So also in whatever creative aspect is the practice. The practice of the listening. Because we are not, nobody teaches us when we are a little child to listen. No. Listen what the other person feels, maybe, or what you feel, or to listen the sound, to listen with the eyes, so this is the very easy practice, and there are thousands of ways. Of course, also the balancing of the hemispheres. Trying to find coherence with the heart, the brain and the heart, and this is also, there are many practices like yoga, tai chi, qigong, or whatever, are also the capacity to tune in inside meditation, or maybe also I think often we have this crazy part inside, no? And I think Osho that worked very much on this thing, no? That you sometimes maybe just doing whatever the body wants to do, and this brings a balance somewhere inside, because the human being is so mysterious, and I think this is the key. When you know that you really don't know, but you can be. So, and who tells us what you can be in this moment, no? And maybe nourish this crazy, let's say, part, and let it be is one of the quickest way to enter into the creative.
That sort of courage to dare to notice the being in this moment, and as you said, some of the craziness. We live in what can on the outside look like a very crazy world at the moment, and
that is the real crazy.
That's the real crazy, yes. But as creative beings, as human beings, we have the capacity and indeed the responsibility, I would say, to be really conscious of what we are creating in the world, and how we can help to change our world through the power of creative thinking, creative action, creative heart. And so I'm curious about your thoughts about the value of imagining new ways of living, new ways of being, and how this relates to the creative process, as we allow ourselves to dream or to see something different or new or beautiful.
Yes, I think we can only see the new if we stop looking. So because otherwise the old always emerges, no? And how can we imagine something different if we are full of stuff who comes to the brain or to the heart? But I think if the whole humanity would enter into this space of creativity, so resonance and being like an antenna, this action would generate the new culture, this new way of relating to all. And it would be based, of course, on truth, on what we need really, and on respect, on love, on beauty, on joy. So because this attitude, you cannot enter into this space if you have low emotions. It's impossible.
Yeah, so we have to get in touch with those parts of ourselves that are prepared to be more open, and the word you used there that I also thought was very useful was that relationship, be in relationship with both ourselves, but also with the world we live in. We're coming to the end of our time, and I'm going to ask you what might seem to be quite an impossible question, given everything we've talked about. But I'm wondering if there's something synthetic or concise that you would want to leave our listeners with in relation to this whole journey of creativity and building a new world, building a new culture, but from our small place, not because we have, we don't have to take everything on our shoulders, but we can be part of that process. Anything you would like to say to kind of sum up this?
I have something to say, because I was very touched by a speech of a Tibetan monk, which called Lobsang Tulku. And he said that our mind has to be controlled, has to be nourished, etc., etc. But he described and gave a mantra that is this synthesis to me, because it's simple and it's really for everybody, even also for the animals. And this mantra is, I will never stop to train or to practice to be happy. It's simple, and this opens. This puts you in a dimension, inner dimension, that from there you can start. To listen to. So this practice of I will never stop. I play with it all the time. I wrote songs and chorales with it, because it's so funny, and repeating it simply cleans something.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. Yeah. And I love that word practice, because it takes away all the need for perfection and just says, be with it, be with the joy of the practice and of the experience of doing something that your heart says is good and enjoyable or has some potential, whatever that looks like. Yes.
And then the intuition or this relation with the creative world is it happens.
Yes.
We don't have to do. You have to practice.
We have to practice, and we have to practice being receptors, as you said. Again, that image of the antennae was very powerful. Claudia, we could talk so much more, and
Lorraine, I thank you so much.
Thank you. And I hope our listeners have been able to connect with something for themselves. I'm sure they have. It's been a very rich sharing. And on behalf of the community of Living Ethics and all our listeners, thank you so much for being with us today. And look forward to seeing you very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you.
This podcast was offered by the Community of Living Ethics, Umbria, Italy, and freely inspired by Aldebaran, the community's Astrosophy group, and by our research on service.